Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
Hey, man, it's another week, another dominant companion week, right? New week, new companion.
Dude, we got to cycle through them. What do we got so far? We get, we had Luris, and we had what's his name? The 6-drop.
Yeah, I mean, that guy he was banned. He was banned. He was so good, he was banned.
And then Obosh. But this week is Yorion's week, right?
Oh, my God, Yorion. I thought Yorion was like, oh, I guess people will make joke decks now. The joke's on me!
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, Yorion seems like one of the strongest. He doesn't scale as well in powered formats just because he costs 5. But, he's still pretty darn good because, I mean, plus, when you're playing a power... You don't want to play 80 cards when some of your cards are like Black Lotus and Ancestral Recall. Plus, basically, no companions are really legal except Luris. But that's when you get sufficiently powerful. In Standard, Yorion's that force to be reckoned with, right? I mean,
oh yeah, I think that it's crazy. I mean, there are at least, I would say, like 2.5, if not 3 different powerful Yorion decks. I mean, obviously, they all have the feature of playing in excess of 30 lands. But there are some Bant versions. There are some Jeskai versions. There are some with Fires of Invention. And there are some, God bless them, with Omen of the Sun.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we've even seen the full range yet, right? Like, what about Yorion Esper, man?
Yorion Esper? I haven't seen that one yet. Is that a new one?
There's a couple different versions. We saw before some people playing Doom Foretold, but I know Michael Majors has been espousing the virtues of, as one possibility, just Hero of Precinct 1, just because there's enough good gold cards, So you're just like, hey,
So just why stop at 40 gold cards? You just keep going? Yeah,
I mean, a lot of the gold cards are pretty good to blink, though, right? Like, obviously the Planeswalkers, like Teferi, but also Elite Guard Mage and Oath of Kea,
What about Basilica Bellhaunt? Do they have that one?
No, but you could. I always am a sucker for that one.
I like that one so much more than Elite Guard Mage, but I can get how it's so color prohibitive, and Elite Guard Mage also helps draw you into the land that you need for your sick 5 casting cost companion. So I can accept it.
Yeah, I think it comes down to if you just want to play that many islands, at a certain spot, right? Like there's enough islands in Castle Vantresses where it is clear that Basilica Bellhaunt is not like something's gotta give. One card he brought up though that I wanted to ask you about, what's up with Tail's End?
Tail's End?
Yeah, 1 in a blue instant. Counter target activated ability, triggered ability, or a legendary spell.
So Tail's End is very convenient, I think, in a format where a large percentage of your opponents could be casting companions, right? So if you know what companion they've got, right? They have to declare the companion at the beginning of the game, so you have a 2-mana counter to cards that always cost 3 or more, right? Some of these companions cost 5. It's always good, right? It's like, imagine Tail's End was just counterspell, right? So it was just 1 in a blue to counter target spell. And it always countered a spell that costs 3 or 5 mana, something, or 6, in the case of a certain, some sort of kaiju octopus that they have these days. But there's like a certainty that people who are, for the most part, not playing Team of Reclamation are always going to have one of these guys. And even if you are playing Team of Reclamation, you can Tail's End somebody's Uro, or you can, get some of their activations, etc.
So actually, speaking of which, I kind of wonder if there's any way, like, this is probably too crazy, but what if you were playing, like, your own Uros, and one of the ways that you make sure that you can, make good with your Tail's End is that you Tails End your Uro's dying trigger.
That's not that bad, right? So you can, I guess that makes Uro into a 5 casting cost card that you drew a card and paid it back with the Tails End. That's not that bad. It's weird.
It's weird.
Like, it's like when you stifle your own Phyrexian Dreadnought, right? It's like, oh, well, you're on a 1 for 2, but on the other hand, you spent 2 mana for a 12/12. That's not the worst.
Yeah. You can Tails End people's Fabled Passages.
That's very hot, especially if it's like their first or second land.
Yeah. You can Tails End Agent of Treachery's trigger.
That is going to come up a lot because I think, like, man, Agent of Treachery is super annoying right now, and people are not even spending the ridiculously steep 7 mana for it. They're cheating him out for the most part.
You can counter one of the chapters of Elspeth Conquers Death. Not all of them, but it's at least,
Yeah.
You're not that into that one?
That's less good. I was thinking, oh, wait, is Elspeth Conqueror's Death a legendary permanent? It is not.
No.
It's a saga, but not legendary.
Right.
It is historic, right? Sagas are historic.
It is historic. But you can counter Planeswalkers. So Tails End for 2 mana can counter Teferi or Narset on, with tempo.
I think you're making me want to play Tails End X4 in some sort of flash deck now. This sounds like it has enough application. Like, it seems like it has as many applications as like an Essence Scatter.
I do think that I think it's the kind of card that even if you want to shove hard on it, 3 sounds more appealing just because of the probability of drawing 2 in the wrong spots. Because I do think the second one of these you draw is usually going to be substantially diminished value compared to the first.
Maybe, but like it depends on what kind of deck you're playing. Like if you're playing a deck that has cards like Brazen Borrower, you might be setting yourself up to just cast it later in the game, right? Like so somebody has a Numori, you missed your Tails End the first time you Brazen Borrower, and then you have a spot where you can Tails End it later. Or, multiple legends. Or a lot of these decks have got Lukka and Narset and Teferi and Nissa. Kenrith.
That guy's a legend.
He is.
Yeah, counter it.
I played against a Kenrith last week.
How'd that work out for you?
I don't remember. It's weird. Like in the early, especially in tournament Magic, like in the early days, I can remember like a 6th round PTQ loss from 22 years ago, right? I can remember that. Like, man, I hate that guy. He was like a local end boss for me, right? But now if you just like play Magic the Gathering Arena, like there's so many games and they just blend together and you're just like, oh, I laddered a gold. Like, ooh, opening a pack. It's just, the individual games don't seem special to me. Although I take a lot of screenshots because I was arguing with somebody. I'm just like, I look at the drafts that I win, and I'm like, I literally had a Kagura and a Broxa in this draft, and so I just took a screenshot of every time I had Kagura and Broxa in play at the same time. So obviously, I won all of those games, right? Like, you can't beat the cycling deck. The cycling deck will cycle you to death. I'm like, well, I don't know. It felt pretty good to have multiple mythic creatures in play, like that were buffing each other. One of which could always come back, but I don't know. It seemed good to me. But they don't even feel special, It's like,
I don't know about all that, man. I'll take your word for it. I'll take your word for it. The finals of Pro Tours feel special though. So I do think that if you cycle,
how many finals of Pro Tours have you played in? 2?
No idea. There's just too many. They're not that special, I guess.
Won one of them.
So when your opponent cycles, you can actually counter the card draw.
That's awesome.
So it's got negative cycling of sorts. You can spend your 2 to make it so they don't get to draw a card.
Yeah, but that's not bad, right? Like, imagine you had a situation. Like, there's many situations over time where if somebody casts a card drawing spell, right, and you were like, counter your card drawing spell. Like, if you prevent somebody from drawing an extra card over the course of a turn, you might stop them from activating an Improbable Alliance, for example, right? Or there's all kinds of stuff that are going to have triggers as a result of that cycling, right? Or say somebody has to cycle twice or draw 2 extra cards at the end of your turn, right? If you stop them from drawing the first one, they might not even get to the chance to get the second one, right? That's not bad. That's a pretty wide application, actually. Tails End.
That's not. Yeah, that's not bad. Dude,
I mean, so it's bad if it's 1 against 2, but it's not even that bad. It's still okay.
It's not. So it's not the biggest played card ever, but I would love to counter a Blast Zone activation.
I think Blast Zone is like quietly one of the most underrated cards in Standard. It's very, very good. It's especially good. I think it's going to be increasingly good if these Yorion mirrors get to be a thing, because it's a way that you can interact with multiple of the opponent's key permanents barring Tails End, right? In a generally non-interactive way. Like, let's say they have like a Narset and Teferi in play, right? You can get your Blast Zone to 3 and take both of those things out. Unless you're playing with Tails End, it's very difficult to stop them from getting a 2-for-1 on you. I like it.
Yeah. What about on the just with countering the companions? I wonder what all the implications are of how predictable they make your opponent, right? Because one of the problems when you're playing with like Essence Scatter, for instance, every turn you leave it up, if you don't use the mana, you kind of wasted some value, right? But you don't necessarily know how they're gonna how their deck is gonna. I mean, some decks are super, super, super homogenous, of course. But a lot of the time, people will have a diverse range of threats. But when their deck is really warped around Yorion, and you know that they always have access to Yorion, but they can't Yorion until turn 5, it kind of changes the calculus a little bit, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You can go ham on turn 3 or 4 sometimes, and then you can just, that spot where you're like, I want to play my whatever card, but then I could only hold up Essence Scatter, or I could only hold up Negate. But if I hold up Sinister Sabotage, I won't get to play my Narset, or whatever. And when you've got Tails End being so cheap, it's kind of sweet that you can just know that on turn 5, you got the right counter spell, and you can just play something that costs 3 that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I totally buy it. I think that actually let's just do a quick game. Let's do a little rundown. Let's say assume we're playing Standard for a second, and somebody declares their companion. Just like, what impression do you have? If you see Luris, you're thinking Rakdos Sacrifice, right?
What would be my guess of what they're playing?
Yeah, they just reveal.
Yeah, Rakdos Sacrifice is the most likely answer.
Yeah, and are there other real options like black-white creatures? I don't know a lot of other viable. Actually, there is
definitely the cycling deck. No, there's also a lot of the cycling decks play Luris.
Yeah,
a lot of them. I mean, some of them play. Some of them play the Boros guy, but a lot of them play Luris just because he's so good.
Okay, that's a good point. So I would say like better than 50% likelihood to be Rakdos Sacrifice. Likely after that to be Jeskai Cycling, and then minority will be like Abzan, right? Abzan's got some Luris action. It's not super popular. Lutri, there's not a viable Lutri deck that I've seen, though. Have you seen one?
Viable, I don't know. Yes, not in Standard so far, but I don't think it's out of the question. In powered formats, if you just pretend that Luris is banned, I think that Lutra is pretty good in Legacy and Vintage, and it's okay in Modern. It doesn't really work in the formats if you allow Luris, but
it's basically like Luris for one turn, right? That's the way that it works.
Well, it's a really good play. Like being able to copy a spell.
Yeah,
that's like pretty intense.
I played against Lutri in Limited, and he Lutried a Cathartic Reunion, which was pretty devastating.
Nice.
I won.
Sure. Dude, you can counter the Priest of Forgotten Gods activation.
With Tails End?
Yeah.
That's hot. Oh, that's really hot.
Yeah.
All right, so Umori. Where's your head at if you see Umori?
I don't know. There's so many different. See, it's weird because where's my head at literally right now versus where's my head at a few days from now and next week? Because I think this stuff's going to keep changing.
Oh,
I don't know
agreed.
that it's as predictable. So where are you going with this? Let's assume that like
because I do think I read something interesting today. I was just like browsing the interwebs and I was on a question and answer forum and somebody had said, will the companions ruin Magic? And I was thinking to myself, yes, they will. And the answer that I saw was no. When somebody plays their companion, it actually frames my strategy for the entire game. I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. Although maybe I should have. So I think you're right. Like what Umori signifies today might be different than what Umori would signify a week from now. But I just think it's kind of fun to think about what decks we're assuming we're up against when we see certain companions.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you play in tournaments where deck lists are public.
Yeah. Man, you're just...
dude, did you see the new variation? It's a Yorion deck also, but they were actually... you know how like, a lot of them are Jeskai?
Yeah.
This one's... there's a 4-color list with green, but not for the usual suspects. Let me see. Where is it? Did you see the? It's got the enchantment based planeswalker. When your mana is already 4 colors and you make it 80, so that you draw the right fix. I don't know though. Maybe there's some BR going on. But yeah, it's Calyx, Destiny's Hand, which is 2 green white. 4 loyalty to start, +1, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them and put it in your hand, but the rest on the bottom. You can -3 this guide, exile target creature enchantment you don't control until target enchantment you control leaves the battlefield. And then -7, return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, which is a pretty intense ability in a deck with 4 copies of Elspeth Conquers Death, 4 Fires of Invention, 3 Omen of the Hunt, 4 Omen of the Sea, 3 Omen of the Sun, 4 Shark Typhoon, and 3 The Birth of Meletus.
Yeah, I'm looking at Source Odin's 19th place deck from a Standard Challenge 2 or 3 days ago. And so Calyx Destiny's Hand is super powerful here, right? Because the +1 it's kind of better than drawing a card, right? And then,
oh yeah, in this deck it is.
And then you've got all these options like where Elspeth Conquers Death, Omen of the Hunt, Omen of the Sea, Omen of the Sun, and the Birth of Meletis. Not Fires and not Shark Typhoon, but the other ones all have blink abilities also, right? So if you play it, you get the value when it comes down, and then someday in the not too distant future, when your buddy Yorion hits the battlefield, you're going to get additional value there. So just mad. But this version, interestingly enough, doesn't have stuff like... I would imagine that it would have like enchantment-based removal, some kind of vanishing.
Well, it sort of does. It has Calyx, Destiny's Hand.
No, I mean just searching for like a banishing light type card to go and interact with people's permanents. That's
no, but you're like Calyx does that. That's what Calyx does.
Calyx is own -3. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. What else do you need, man? You got Elspeth Conquers Death. You got, like, Agent of Treachery. By the way, walk me through this here. So, Luca, Copper Coat Outcast is just a staple in all these decks now, right?
Yeah, I mean, although this one has only 3 copies, makes no sense to me because it's the center of the deck.
Luca?
Yeah, I mean, to have 3 Agent of Treachery and 3 Luca that doesn't make sense, but it should have 4 Luca, in my opinion. The deck has 80 cards, right? Like, we could...
Because because you just want to drop the Luca and then target your token, your human soldier, or your Castle Ardenvale token.
Or Shark.
Your Birth of Meletus 0/4 wall.
Yeah, so these decks, I'm just looking again at Source Odin's deck, has 2 Castle Ardenvales, which are lands which produce token creatures, and then it has like a ton of these enchantments make creatures, right? So Omen of the Sun makes creatures, Shark Typhoon makes creatures, and Birth of Meletis makes creatures. It's basically the only actual creature that's like not a token in the deck is Agent of Treachery, so you like Shark Typhoon at the end of turn, untap, play Luca on turn 4 maybe, because you've got Growth Spiral in your deck. Immediately activate the the -2 ability on Luca, and then you upgrade like that shark or whatever into an Agent of Treachery and take your opponent's best thing. If their best thing is, for example, an Arboreal Grazer with 2 mutates on it, that's a pretty good get, right? But you can get whatever you might want. And the thing that's super good about it in this deck is Blinking Agent of Treachery actually sets you up to get Agent of Treachery's second ability, which nobody ever really activates. But they would in this deck.
Yeah. What do you think of Mythos of Illuna as a blink effect of sorts? So some of these decks are playing some Mythos of Illuna with no green mana, just because they want to copy a permanent. And they're looking to copy Shark Typhoon or Elspeth Conquers Death or Agent of Treachery.
I think I would want to play the green. I don't know. Now that I've seen that Calyx version, I feel like the green is not that expensive to play.
No, but you're not going to fight. Your deck has 3 Agent of Treacheries in it, man.
No, you fight with their thing.
Yeah, but dude, you don't want to copy their thing. You want to, unless their thing's an Agent of Treachery. Like,
you don't want to don't want to copy their 4/4 to eat their 3/3.
I would love if that was what Standard was about right now. I don't think that's what Standard is about right now. At best, you can Mythos of Illuna your Yorion and just go DI again.
Oh, that's sweet.
When you do that, you don't need Yorion to also fight something. I mean, you would take it, but I would not contort an already tenuous mana situation. Your deck has 36 land out of the 80. You gotta,
one of them is a blast zone.
You got to make some choices, man. You make choices and you live with them.
Yeah, I'm looking at Asmodean 1990s 5th place deck from the Standard Challenge from 5-2. I like this deck. It has an Elspeth Sun's Nemesis, which is yet another source of token making to set up the Luca Agent of Treachery combo. Here's the thing. If you're playing like only the 3-color version with no green, you can fit like that 4th Luca, that 4th Agent of Treachery. Deck's a lot cleaner.
All right, dude. I got a Mythos of Illuna making green mana deck for you. The 23rd place list played by John Smith. Mythos, 2 copies of Mythos of Illuna because you're copying Cavalier of Thorns some of the time.
Oh, Cavalier of Thorns is very good in Standard right now because of Cavalier of Thorns' enormous toughness.
The thing I don't like about Mythos of Illuna in this deck, and it's fine, but like, what you don't want to copy Hydroid Crassus.
No.
And it's not like you're not really doing anything if you copy Uro. So it's not, you know what I mean? Like,
it's not a very efficient thing. I mean, you're still getting a decent effect, right?
No, not for 4 mana.
All right. So
your token dies.
So we're going with Agent or Cavalier of Thorns here. That's basically what you're saying.
No, really what I'm saying is that we're going to just copy some sick Planeswalker. You know, like your opponent plays a Planeswalker and then you copy it. I do like one Karn the Great Creator, though. That's kind of spicy.
What do you like about it?
Because, dude, nobody ever plays only one copy of that guy.
Like there's here. What are the available gets? One.
So he's got Golos, Tyros Pilgrim. He's got the Grafdigger's Cage, Shadow Spear, Soul Guide Lantern, and Sorcerer's Spyglass. That's so much dedication to that one Karn.
There's another Karn in the sideboard in this deck. Here's the thing. You don't even want the cage, right? Like, I guess you do.
Why would you not want the cage? If you're playing against a Cauldron deck, you definitely want the cage, man.
Right, so Grafdigger's Cage has creatures in graveyards and libraries can't enter the battlefield. You're literally playing an Uro deck.
That's fine. Dude, you got plenty of, in the words of the great philosopher Damian Lillard, plenty money.
Here's the thing. The cage is very valuable if you're playing against one of the Luca decks because they have to answer the cage. If they don't answer the cage, then they can't get their Agent of Treachery combo off. So, I kind of buy it. This deck, I don't buy. You're playing like an 80 card deck, and you made room for Erebos' intervention.
Yeah, dude, Erebos' intervention is nice. Also, this isn't an 80 card deck, is it? I thought it was 81. No, this is 80. This one's 80. I was gonna say 81 is the sickest. When you actually just like when you play 81, that right there is that right there is a signal that you are here to party.
All right, so you're playing an 80 card deck. How do you come to the conclusion that 2 Wolf Willow Havens is the correct number of Wolf Willow Havens in an 80 card deck, but there are no Paradise Druids?
Because Paradise Druid dies, and Wolf Willow Haven's underrated.
I think Wolf Willow Haven is a pretty good card. I'm just curious about the number 2.
That's just how many, because you only have room for so many 2-drops. It's just like, how did you arrive at the number of 2 copies of Izumaru? It's nothing crazy. It's just that I wanted to play 10 1-drops, and Kurdape and Nikata were better, so I just played 2 Izumaru. Here, there's just 2 Wolf Willow Haven. Like, he's already playing. They're already playing Growth Spiral, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they decided that this is how much room they have for. I don't know how you. Like, that's, I think you could afford to play more cards that cost 2 or less, but I don't think it's weird to only play 2 Wolf Willow Haven.
I think Wolf Willow Haven, that's an oddie for me. I think that I would...
Dude, I would have thought you'd like a card better than Rampant Growth.
I like Wolf Willow Haven. I think it's odd that they only played 2 in their 80-card deck. That's the thing that I find to be odd. I think it is a very good card.
I think there's too much of the time people are like, oh, they played with a card, why didn't they play 4? And it's like, dude, usually the first copy is like way better.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you're likely... So Wolf Willow Haven is way better on turn 2 than it is on, let's say, turn 10, right? You're playing an 80-card deck. You need to increase the concentration of the turn 2 plays.
Not necessarily. It depends. Like, why don't you hate these other decks that play 0 Wolf Willow Haven?
That's an interesting question. Maybe I should.
Like... That's the thing that just doesn't make any sense to me, is the person who plays 2 Wolf Willow Havens, it's like, that's so much better of a number on a card that is not mainstream. I believe you so much more if you're playing 2. To jump to, why aren't you playing 4? It's like, well, why aren't you playing any? So I think that I would start by going and looking at the people who are not playing any, and you tell me how to make room for them.
Okay.
80 cards is not as much as it used to be, man.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this. Like, I actually think I'm not in love with the Mythos of Aluna in this deck.
No.
I decided I'm not in love with it. I like some other stuff that John Smith 3373 has going on in this deck that makes me wish that some of those cards were there instead of the Mythos of Aluna. I think that the 2 Cavalier of Thorns and 2 Hydroid Crisis are a little sad next to the 3 Agent of Treachery. I don't know about that Karn, Patrick. I mean, I love Karn. Don't get me wrong. I love Karn as a card. I packed 4 Karns last year in green decks. So I love Karn. I'm just not sure.
So I can show you the proof, by the way, that 2 Wolf Willow Havens is the correct number.
Okay.
If you go to the 30th place, Beraldi's Garuda deck, 2 copies of Wolf Willow Haven. So this is one of the all-in style of Garuda decks, where it's kind of like, man, I'm a 1-card combo, and my 1 card is Garuda, and I get to start with it. So, as we've talked about in earlier weeks, you just try to get up to 6 mana. You've got lots of acceleration with Paradise Druid, Growth Spiral, etc., plus stuff like Migration Path. You're just trying to get up to 6 so that when you Garuda a ton of stuff. Charming Prince resets your Garuda ability. Another Garuda gives you another trigger. You have all these different ways to get more triggers, but then you also get ahead because your spark doubles don't count.
So, I don't know. I think I would want 4 Migration Path and 4 Wolf Willow Haven, and I would be willing to cut some of the creatures.
Dude, this deck has 5 basic land in it.
Yeah, but you need to cast one migration path, and then you're on Garuda mana, and then you cycle the rest of them. It's not like back in the day when you like run out of basic lands and you can't Kodama's Reach anymore. You just cycle it then.
Dude, I would want to play more than one Luminous Broodmoth personally. So the problem with Migration Path, with playing too much of it, is that you really, really, really need to have hits. Like Garuda can go pretty big, but you only get to look at the top 4 cards of your library. Even with only 26, even with the 26 creatures that we have here, that's like, okay. Are you suggesting we cut the Wolf Willhaven?
No, I like Wolf Willhaven. I would play.
Right. So, but that's the thing, is that you can't just play tons of non-creatures. You can play some more, but obviously you're not cutting land or growth spirals, right?
No.
So, like, how much are you willing to trim? I bet you got your eye on those elite guard mages, don't you?
Yeah, they're pretty low impact for this deck.
Yeah.
I think Dream Eater's good in this strategy, actually. Like,
really?
Yeah, like, I played against...
For 6?
I played against this deck a lot, and what ends up happening is... Well, actually, it's very novel that this deck has a weird extra way to win, which is you just cast your Garudas, right? You cast your Garuda out of your sideboard, you cast whatever Garudas you have, and it's not that you, like, realistically can deck the opponent, but you can, like, put a hurt on the opponent's library. Like, if the opponent has, just for sake of argument, 1 mountain, right? Sometimes that mountain gets taken, right? Or they have, like, a limited number of, like, key planeswalkers or key top-end threats. They can just get flipped by Garuda, and sometimes they join the other squad. So it's very...
Wait, what does this have to do with Dream Eater?
So I'm going to get there, right? So, but the thing is... Once you deal with the plan A of this deck, like, it's basically a deck with a bunch of creatures, right? So if you've got stuff like that,
dude, it's got a plan B. Okay, so the plan B is where Elite Guard Mage comes in. You've got Elite Guard Mage, which you can recur with Kogla or with Thassa. Dude, this is like, you know, you start grinding out the card advantage that way.
Well, here's the thing about Dream Eater. Dream Eater has Flash, and it deals with a key permanent, and it gets in there because it has.
That's
flying.
The thing.
That's the thing.
Are you just reading the text?
Well, like you got so this deck has so much like bathunk. Like whatever they play that Garuda, it hits the table with a loud force and weight equal to the toughness of Kogla itself, right? When it's hitting the table. And then you just got to respect it. And I think, like, you have a limited number of cards to interact with. Like, they probably have a lot.
None of this makes any sense.
I don't know.
You're saying this deck hits so hard it needs another 6-drop that doesn't hit so hard?
No, because,
to, like, what, bring the average down?
No, it's because if they answer Plan A, then you've got Dream Eater going.
I think you're just a person who doesn't believe in Plan A. That's what I think.
I think...
Dude, you should
this
just...
deck is powerful.
Dude, let's build Dimir Flash and get it over with, man. You know that's where the format's going eventually. By the way...
That Mutate Shark with Flash that you keep talking about, man, that card is pretty good.
Yeah, I told you that.
I played against it yesterday, and it was pretty good.
I'm telling you, if you just look at the... Like, it's like, have y'all never played against Venser, Shaper, Savant? Come on. Did you see the Arcanist Owl deck from the league? I think it was posted on like the 4th. But Bielzito's 5-0 list was an exotic take on Yorion. So it's one of those Jeskai Yorion decks. But his twist is that he's got 4 Archon of Sun's Grace and 4 Arcanists Owl.
Yeah, so this deck, despite being Jeskai Yorion, doesn't have the Looka combo, right? So it has Agent of Treachery, but no Looka. And the red is like for Deafening Clarion and Omen of the Forge.
No. Fires of Invention is
Fires
the main
of Invention.
thing. Yeah, Fires is the main one, yeah.
So Arcanist Owl is awesome, obviously, because it costs 4, and you can look at the top 4 cards of your library, and if one of them is an enchantment, you can put it in your hand, and that enchantment is sometimes Fires of Invention, and sometimes also with Conqueror's Death, and both of those are pretty good hits.
Dude, sometimes it's Thassa Deep Dwelling.
That's pretty good with the Arcanist Owl.
Arcanist Owl, lot of devotion here, you know?
Yeah, and then so you've also got Arcana Sun's Grace, right? So Arcana Sun's Grace is very, very potent in this deck because there are so many enchantments, right? To get all
if the Archon lives, because if you just untap a Yorion, your board is insurmountable.
Here's the thing about it in this deck. If the Archon doesn't live, you can just get it back with Elspeth Conquers Death, which is really, really solid here because you actually have key creatures that you might want to get back. What's crazy? There's a Yorion in the main deck too. How greedy! How freaking greedy.
dude, that's nice. That way, dude, that's good. That way you just nobody expects the second Yorion.
Well, I'm not. You already have the one that everybody knows about in the sideboard. Who would expect the first one?
So there's an interesting take on the Winota Joiner of Forces combo.
Hold on, I'm not ready to lose this deck.
Oh, yet. Sure.
All right, come on, man. 37 lands, ton of temples here, like 7 temples, full set of Ragavan Triomes, 37 lands in an 80-card deck. Are we really so bent in our imagination of what the metagame is that we're just like 2 Deafening Clarions in the main deck, no Deafening Clarions in the sideboard? Like, just no respect for creatures. No respect.
Why? Well, I'll respect the creatures when they make respectable creatures.
Right? So you think, like, it's just all these hyper-card advantage, attrition, control-ish mid-range decks are just all slamming each other with card advantage, and there's just no hope for the beaters right now.
No, I don't know. I just think that Arcana Sun's Grace is like a fine plan. Like, if your plan is, I was going to play Deafening Clarion, but I found that Arcana Sun's Grace was actually just almost as good, but it was like way better in the other matchups.
Oh man, I guess if you've got an Arcana Sun's Grace and then you like play your 5th land and then you just like cast like 2 Omens during their combat, you're just going to murder them, aren't you?
Plus,
Omen of the Forge is going to kill one of their guys. You get 2 lifelinkers. Yeah, that's actually insane.
There's a lot of small ball in this one too. It's not like you're doing nothing. You get to on turn 2 play Charming Prince or Omen of the Forge, something. You're advancing the board, and on turn 3 you can like Teferi bounce something, or you have one of those Clarions. And obviously, even if you just have to play an Arcanist Owl on turn 4, it's like you're making plays every turn.
So talk to me about Shark Typhoon here. There's 2 in the main deck, 2 in the sideboard. Look, does this deck want to ever cast Shark Typhoon? Like, if
you go really long. But I think it's not casting it is not plan A. No. In general, Shark Typhoon's just like a good Decree of Justice type of card, right?
Yeah, I guess you're like Arcanist Owl, and then sometimes you reveal Shark Typhoon, and then if they deal with your 3/3 flyer, you just end a turn, draw a card, and make a big guy, and get the party back on.
Yeah.
You know what the worst card in this deck is to me? Fires of Invention.
You're totally wrong. You're crazy.
Yeah.
You're totally crazy. Fires of Invention is excellent in this deck.
I mean, it's an excellent card in general. I'm just saying.
I think the worst card in this deck might be Yorion. All right, so
the 2 key cards are the ones that
it is both the best. I think, without question, Yorion is the first and 80th best card in this deck. Dude, so there's a new a new take anyway on the Winota Joiner of Forces deck, which is, it's the whole thing where you're like, you raise the alarm, then both of your tokens give you more triggers for Winota, and all you're really trying to do is find Agent of Treachery, but sometimes you settle for Charming Prince, Elite Guard Mage, or Kenrith, right? So this deck, first of all, it has more backup plan hits, like Tithe Taker, where it's like, it's at least something,
Well, Tithe Taker can make it a little bit difficult for your opponent to interact with you when you're on your plan A, right? That's the thing.
And then the Fibblethip the Lost. Everybody plays 4 of this guy, and Elite Guard Mage is no surprise. But Incubation Incongruity is how they're setting up the combo. Being able to
find your
just pay a blue and you get to look at the top 5, find yourself a Winota, and keep on going.
This deck never incongruities, right? It doesn't have any access to incongruity?
Nope. It cannot do it by itself.
So Incubation, is that convincingly better than Adventurous Impulse then?
Oh, yeah. If you don't need it to fix your mana, first of all, there's no green mana in this deck. Right?
Yeah, that'll definitely do it.
But second of all, dude, all you want to do is dig to Winota. When you have one card in your deck that is so much higher leverage than anything else, being able to dig the deepest is that's where the money's at.
You know what? This deck just makes me kind of validates the idea you were talking about earlier with Tail's End. Like, this deck is literally... It has a plan that is cobbled together around this forecasting cost legendary permanent. You just mess it up and it's just like a bunch of medium cards, right? Like,
at best.
Like,
it's not like 4 Fibble, like the first Fibblethip you draw is medium.
Yeah.
If you're Fibblethip flooded, not medium anymore. Like, you're a little south.
Man, I really like Legion Warboss. I've got 4 of them in the sideboard of my red deck right now. For certain matchups.
Dude, raise the alarm. Legion Warboss, Tithe Taker, Charming Prince, Fibblethip the Lost. This deck is like a who's who of the constructed equivalent of 23rd cards. Like, it's all 23rd cards for your draft deck, but it's the 23rd card of the constructed deck, so to speak.
It's like those like mid 90s Cleveland Cavalier teams that kept making the playoffs. Yeah. And you're like, how? Like, the best player on this team is Terrell Brandon. Oh,
okay. Only from Cleveland. Only if you're...
I happen to be from Cleveland.
So there's...
I can say it's like those, like the early Detroit Pistons teams, except for those teams are actually full of awesome players that just didn't score a lot of points.
Like, well, no, it's not like that at all, because one, the Pistons won some championships.
Yes, they were very good. Ben Wallace was very good.
I'm talking about even before Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars.
I'm talking about the early aughts teams, not the late 80s teams.
Sure, all of it. The point is that
nobody's that late 80s teams had like a bunch of Hall of Famers.
Right, of course, and so did the aughts team. Close enough. So. There's a Esper deck that's an example of one of the different directions you can go with Yorion. You know, we've talked about a lot of the Jeskai ones, but this one is a noob PT's 5.0 list. Has a lot less enchantments than the Jeskai one. You know, it still has Oathakaya, Omen of the Sea, Shark Typhoon, and Elspeth Conquers Death. But some of what you're doing to blink here is really just about blinking Ashiok, Kea, Narset, Teferi. Plus, at a certain point, 60, 80, what's the difference? But I'm loving the use of 3 extinction events. This card is a beating. What do you think, man? Extinction event? So this is like that standard league from the 4th. It's first of all, it's got your home slice Ashiok Nightmare Muse.
Yeah, so extinction event, 3 and a B. Choose odd or even. Exile each creature with converted mana cost of the chosen value. 0 is even. This thing, first of all, just conditionally, you could be playing against certain companions or certain other companions, and you will mess their side of the battlefield up. And you might keep stuff on your own, right? So you could name odd, and if you had a bunch of Ashiok Nightmare Muse creatures, which have even casting cost at 0, your guys would all live.
Well, yeah, that's actually part of it, is that your Shark Typhoon tokens cost 0, your Ashiok tokens cost 0, and you really want to extinction event odds so that you exile all the recursive creatures, the Gutterbones, the Cauldron Familiars, all that stuff.
Patrick, I think extinction event is going to break out after this. This might, at the very least, this should be an awesome sideboard card. Right?
Yeah, I think the card's awesome.
This is really awesome. Like, imagine you're playing like the Obosh version of Black Red Sacrifice, and you've got all the odds, right? You've got all the cats and whatever on odd. You can just get like random evens. Like if people have 2 or 3 evens, you just get like a 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 on the battlefield and to just truck with your other guys. And it beautifully fits into a slot that is not Obosh's slot, right? So you could do it after also.
You can exile both Uro and the Cavalier of Thorns at the same time.
Yeah.
Those are good ones to exile.
Exiling any of the escape guys is obviously awesome. So how does this deck win? I guess it has Shark Typhoon, it has Ashiok.
Mostly Planeswalker attrition. It's really a control deck that's just about grinding out value.
It's not that exciting of a Yorion deck, though, right? It's like only pretty good Yorion. I mean, I guess any Yorion's pretty good, right? But it's not like 3 Oath of Chaos, 3 Elspeth Conquers Death. Not much more to really be getting the payoff from Yorion. I'm a little, I don't know.
Ashiok, reset the counters. Narset, reset your Narset, reset your Teferi.
Resetting Planeswalkers is fine.
This is one of the most modest Yorion decks I've seen. That's true. But it's a 5/4 for 5.
It's a 5/4 cantrip that also has a 4/5 cantrip that also has flying for 5, which is pretty good. I guess if you get like anything,
compare it to Air Elemental. Isn't it better than Air Elemental?
Yeah, I mean, it would beat Air Elemental straight up in a fight. It would walk away.
Yeah.
Or fly away, probably, or slither away. It's also a serpent.
Yeah.
So, I'm just saying, like, it's not that devastating of a Yorion deck, but you just compare it to these other decks that have got like, 2187 enchantments. Like they're clearly leaning hard into Yorion. And the thing is, given the fact that you can so reliably have Yorion on turn 5, like, don't you think this deck should have like, I don't know, Bertha Meletis? Like,
well, I don't know.
Bertha Meletis seems better than... I don't know if it's better than Omen of the Sea, like, in a long game, but I think, like, it has application. I think it's probably...
I like Bertha Meletis, but... actually, just touching bases on the other formats. First of all, the 128 top finishing Vintage players are all playing Lurrus in their sideboard. I don't know if you saw any of the Vintage stuff recently. There's a big Vintage tournament this weekend. And continuing the theme over the last several weeks, so the top performing archetypes were so there's a Tendrils deck with Lurrus, Paradoxical Outcome style, built around abusing Lurrus that way. There's, there's Sprite Dragon Lurrus.
That's nice. At least attacks.
Yeah, there's a Dark Confidant, Tarmogoyf, Snapcaster Mage, Collector Oof sort of deck built around Lurrus. There's a good range here. I think there's a couple artifact decks built around Lurrus. There's a balance deck, Dak Faden with Dreadhorde Arcanist built around Lurrus. Let me see. There's a Dark Confidant Lurrus deck if you want to play that one. So that's sort of the state of Vintage at the moment.
Is Lavinia? That's a great Vintage card. People play a lot of Lavinia Azurius Renegade.
Oh yeah, she's incredible. So in Vintage, when you have Lavinia, your opponent can't play Moxes. They can't play Black Lotus. They can't play Lotus Petal, Mana Crypt, Lion's Eye Diamond, Mishra's Bauble, any of that stuff. They also can't Force a Will. So it's like this weird Chalice of the Void that also shuts off Force a Will that you can pitch to Force a Will.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you can buy it back with Lurrus if it dies, right? That's the other thing.
Sure. Plus, you can bounce it with Caracas, man. Protect it.
Nice.
It's part of the reason why you need to have your own Caracas, is to make sure that other people don't do it to you.
So Soul Guide Lantern is a great Vintage card?
Soul Guide Lantern?
Yeah.
I mean, like, you got a graveyard hate. What do you mean by great? There's a million graveyard hate cards.
Like, if people are playing it in their main deck, I feel like it must be a pretty good card.
Yeah.
It's also cantrip-ish.
Yeah, so the big thing is that, like, you know how, like, with a lot of those Relic of Progenitus types, first of all, Relica Progenitus is very disruptive to your own plan if you're playing like a Lurrus deck, right?
Yeah, it messes your own side up.
So then you're like, well, what about Nile Spellbomb? But the thing about Nile Spellbomb is that Nile Spellbomb doesn't give you the card until you blow it, and you don't get to exile anything until you blow it, right? It's just one big shot. Soul Guide Lantern lets you put it down and exile something immediately, which really matters. But then you also just have a Tormod's Crypt sitting in play. And if you don't want it anymore, you can cycle it like it was a Relic of Progenitus. And it's one-sided. When it Tormod's Crypts, it's one-sided. So this card is just fantastic in the Lurrus metagame where 100% of decks are built around Lurrus. It's also just a one-cost artifact for your paradoxical outcome, but, you know.
So I'm looking at this third place deck. So this deck has the plan of attacking with a 2/2, or setting up a Sprite Dragon, or comboing off with paradoxical outcome. Any of these things is an available plan.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a variety of different options available to you. Sprite Dragon gives you another dimension to your deck, you know? Because Sprite Dragon, part of the combo with Sprite Dragon is that you can Time Walk. And since Sprite Dragon attacks for 10, they're dead.
Oh.
Another part, because remember, you just go a paradoxical outcome and you bounce everything, and then it's sort of like a Monastery Mentor that's not restricted and has haste. You can also pitch it to Force of Will, which really does matter. And then the other thing is that you can get it back with your Lurrus.
Oh, well, there you go. And it grows pretty quick, right? Like, if you've got any cards, all your cards are going to grow Sprite Dragon. There's so few cards that don't trigger it.
Well, yeah, and you got to make a few weird choices, because remember, it's not like Lurrus is actually free. People joke like it's free, but like you don't get to play Tinker or Yawgmoth's Will. And Monastery Mentor, like Tinker and Yawgmoth's Will, is banned in Vintage now because it costs 3 or more. Not Yawgmoth's Will and Tinker, sorry. But the Tinker is just because they're going to get the Colossus.
Okay.
Yawgmoth's Will just isn't that good anymore because Lurrus is better, but... Wow. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think pretty clearly Vintage is in a weird place. What about Legacy?
I don't know. What about Legacy? I have no knowledge of Legacy.
So, well, Legacy has a bizarre amount of Lurrus going on too. Basically, everybody's playing Lurrus. The Lurrus decks in Legacy are quite different. For instance, the winner of the Legacy Challenge on the 3rd was this white deck with Giver of Runes, Izumaru, Kytheon, Leonin Arbiter, Mother of Runes, Phyrexian Revoker, Thalia Guardian of Thraben, Tomic Distinguished Advocates,
Love Tomic,
and Toolcraft Exemplar. And this is a deck with 4 Lotus Petals and 4 Mox Ambers.
So it's just like a white weenie beatdown deck, right?
Yeah, it's got some hate bear action going.
Very little bit, right? I mean, Thalia's just slowing them down a little bit.
You got Leonin Arbiter, too.
I guess Leonin Arbiter plus Ghost Quarter is a sick combo.
Yeah, there's Path to Exile, too.
Yeah, and then Lurrus is just buying back your now dead creatures that somebody got with their lightning bolt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can also get back Lotus Petal, man, and you can like discard stuff to Smuggler's Copter and still get it. Plus, you can use, like with Mox, if you have multiple Mox Ambers, it's kind of a card, it's kind of a mana acceleration engine.
I guess Lotus Petal Lurrus in this kind of a deck works just the same way that you were talking about Black Lotus back the first time we saw Lurrus. You could just like cast the second turn Lurrus and immediately buy back the Lotus Petal, and you're just there.
Yep. Yeah.
That's not bad. I guess Smuggler's Copter Lurrus is also sick.
Yeah.
Right? Like you could just be discarding Lotus Petals or other cheap artifacts or other permanents and just get them back with Lurrus.
And if you check out the 3rd place list, JTL's list features 4 copies of Fathom Seer. Fathom Seer with Weathered, Wayfarer, and Knight of the White Orchid, making these meddling mages proud. This is a deck that I guess wants to utilize these cataclysms.
I mean, it's going to take me a while to get all of these things into my head. Like, Fathom Seer is, I mean, that's a favorite from draft, right? Has Fathom Seer ever seen a lot of constructed play?
Yeah, it was really good in Standard for a little while. Most of the time it was in those dedicated morph decks, you know.
Pickles deck, like the one that had the lock down all your mana combo in it.
Yeah.
So I love Knight of the White Orchid. There's no good way to set it up, right? Are you setting it up backwards?
Fathom Seer. You're bouncing your 2 Tundras. Dude, that's how you're setting it up.
Float, bounce, cast Knight of the White Orchid with no land in play, search, and then just play one of the lands back.
Yeah.
That is a lot of work for a 1/3 and a 2/2, I gotta say.
But dude, you can get back your Fathom Seer with Luris.
Yeah, I know. But you can't get it back the way you want it, right?
Okay, so there's a Doomsday Luris deck, Monkey Scanned Cries list. I don't know what's up with 1 Lion's Eye Diamond and 3 Lotus Petals, but I guess if you're just going to go find it anyway, you know, like if your plan is just, I'm just going to go get my 1 Lion's Eye Diamond with Doomsday, I could believe it. But this is this is a degenerate. This is a deck on its way to degeneracy. Anybody who just has 1 Edge of Autumn, like, watch out for that
They're
person.
not messing around, right?
They are not messing around.
I mean,
no.
To be fair, Monkey Scant Cry can at least cast that Edge of Autumn, right? Like, it'd be really, really sketchy if they couldn't cast it, but there's a Bayou. There's some Misty Rainforests here. There's a Trop. Just cast that thing.
What are you talking about, man? To go get the 2 snow-covered islands or the snow-covered swamp?
Yeah. I'm just saying it would be utterly degenerate if they couldn't cast it. But the fact that they can cast it means that it's a little legit.
Their only way to cast it's Lion's Eye Diamond and Lotus Petal.
Yeah.
I
gotta tell you, I love the idea of buying back Baleful Strix with Luris. That's pretty hot.
This deck's pretty degenerate if you can do it. So there's a Grixis Luris deck, the Learn to Love. Learn to Love's version of Luris was a lot of what you'd expect out of a Grixis Delver deck, but I think he's actually playing a little bit less black than you usually see. Still has a little bit of discard. And some sideboard options, but definitely a lot less black. Mainly, you're playing black because you have to play either black or white anyway, since you're playing Magic the Gathering, and Luris is one of those 2 colors.
What do you think about the 4 baubles with 3 Mishra's Bauble and 1 Urz's Bauble?
Dude, give yourself some options.
I feel like I would want to have lots of baubles. Like, having seen this, like, aren't baubles large? I mean, I guess you have... The creatures are really hungry for sorceries, right?
Yeah, and your deck only has 1 preordain at the moment. Where are you going to get the room? That's why you play Yorion, dude.
Just get all the room back. I just feel like, obviously, Dreadhorde Arcanus and Delver of Secrets really want to be friends with Ponder and Brainstorm and so forth. So it's weird, this split with the baubles. But you got to have something to get paid back from Luris, I guess.
Well, so Urz's Bauble, obviously Urz's Bauble has diminishing returns. Like, the first one gives you some information, but if you ever just look at the same card twice, it's kind of embarrassing.
I mean, the point of the card is for the free candy, right? I mean, it's not... I mean, the information is nice. I guess if you, like, baubled someone and saw Lightning Bolt, it might keep you from casting a first-turn Delver of Secrets, right? That will happen sometimes, right? You can instead choose to do something else.
So we've got a Counterbalance Top deck, but since Top is banned, they're playing Luris.
Just Counterbalance Luris.
Yeah, get back your Counterbalance. Dude, it's kind of nice, you know? There's an Oko Karn the Great Creator, Teferi, which, all that. Once you see Oko and Teferi, and you're like, okay, show me the Arkham's Astrolabe and let's just move on.
Yeah.
But, this one actually breaks the trend. Unlike in Vintage, where 100% of people play Lurrus, here we have a tough guy playing with Zerda the Dawnwaker.
Oh, so all of these cards have activations, right? So all these artifacts tap for something. Grim Monolith. It's nice to see Grim Monolith.
Well, that's what you do, is the Grim Monolith makes infinite mana, and then you kill your opponent with Walking Ballista.
I like it.
Yeah, this is a combo we talked about earlier, a few weeks ago.
You were talking about it with Basalt Monolith, but Grim Monolith...
Oh, no, and Grim Monolith, too,
is a way to do it. So,
Grim Monolith's the better way to do it.
So, Grim Monolith costs 2, taps for 3. And then if you... With Zerda, you make the untap cost 2 less, so a single Grim Monolith tap can make you go infinite. If you can... Right, it just goes infinite.
Yep. And then... The Basalt Monolith you save for the sideboard so that your Karn the Great Creator can go get it. It's being able to get Basalt Monolith out of the sideboard lets you play the cheap one in the main deck where you just want to get your perfect draw. But then once you have enough mana to play Karn anyway, then actually casting the Basalt Monolith out of your sideboard is not that big of a problem.
Wait, so is this a plausible draw? So I just go second turn Grim Monolith, go, you do whatever, and you don't win the game on the spot on turn 2, and I just cast Zerda on turn 3 and kill you? That's a thing, right?
But that's a really slow way to do it.
That's the slow way to do it?
Yeah, so first of all, this deck is one of the slow ways to do this combo. This is not a dedicated version. So, this deck can play Ancient Tomb on the first turn, and then just play Grim Monolith, right? And then I guess you don't get ahead because you don't have a snow permanent.
But you need double white or red to cast Zerda, though. So it's a little. I mean, obviously you can.
They don't even play the Lion's Eye Diamond out of the sideboard. Because one of the things you can do is if you play Lion's Eye Diamond in the sideboard, you can also play the Zerda that way. Because you got Karn the Great Creator. You can go turn 1 Karn.
I am utterly willing to wait until turn 3 to kill them with my infinite mana combo.
I guess you have Force of Will to try to buy you enough time to make it till then.
Yeah, I feel like I would date. There's Veil of Summer too. This deck is actually sweet. You could just slow play them.
Yeah. That's part of the reason you can't really do this in Vintage the same way, since you have to play Lurrus.
You can also just a lot of Legacy games aren't decided on turn 4. Right? You can just cast a Fairy or something. It's all good.
Yeah. But dude, Legacy's wild. There's actually a Jegantha the Wellspring deck. Craighead's 8th place list is playing Jegantha because buys. And this is a 36 land deck, no Yorion.
Wait, so what is Jegantha getting them here, right? So
it's a 5/5.
Just a 5/5 drew a card?
It's a 5/5 with no opportunity cost. They don't need the sideboard cards. This is a lands deck. None of your sideboard cards do anything.
All right. I'm in. I'm of the opinion that, modern humans should adopt Jegantha just because they don't have a companion right now. At the cost of, one main deck Auriok champion, they can play Jegantha.
Yeah, I think if you can work it out with one of the companions, you probably should. But all right, man, there's been a lot of sweet stuff, and then Modern and Pioneer we should talk about next week because there's been some moving and shaking.
All right, cool, man.
All right, see you then.
Bye-bye. So great. Bye. Tried to play Dredge, it's a jailer hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis. Lost so out